On July 8, 2025, the skies over Ruidoso, a peaceful town nestled in the Sierra Blanca Mountains, changed suddenly and terrifyingly. What began as just another hot summer day quickly turned into a nightmare. An unexpected and brutal storm descended upon the region, unleashing such an intense downpour that even the oldest residents couldn't recall anything like it. The rain wasn't just heavy, it was devastating. In under an hour, the Rio Ruidoso transformed from a calm creek into a raging beast. The water surged from 1 foot to over 20 feet, smashing past its previous record and sweeping away everything in its path. Alarms rang out, but for many, it was already too late. What made the situation even more alarming was that the land wasn't prepared to absorb that kind of water. Just a year earlier, in 2024, the South Fork and Salt wildfires had scorched thousands of acres around Ruidoso. The soil, hardened by flames, had become hydrophobic and could no longer soak up rain. And that's when the disaster began. The rain bounced off the ground as if it were striking pavement. With no vegetation or roots to hold it back, the water rushed downhill, dragging mud, ash, rocks, scorched trees, and whatever else it could find. Creeks and natural channels quickly became rivers of destruction. The U.S. National Weather Service immediately issued a flash flood emergency alert. The directive was clear: seek higher ground. Do not attempt to cross floodwaters. The current will carry you away. The towns of Ruidoso, Hollywood, Alto, and Ruidoso Downs were all placed under the emergency notice. The speed of the disaster was overwhelming. Within minutes, homes began to float. Cars were trapped in the mud, and many residents found themselves completely cut off. Videos circulating on social media were shocking. Two-story homes ripped from their foundations and dragged away like paper. In the Hollywood neighborhood, a camera captured the moment a house was slammed into trees as the current carried it downstream. It was a scene that shook the entire nation. Streets turned into brown rivers filled with garbage, debris, and vehicles drifting helplessly. Rescue teams responded with remarkable speed. Firefighters, police, volunteers, and helicopters mobilized in a desperate race to save lives. Between 50 and 85 water rescues were conducted within just a few hours. Some involved ropes, others happened from rooftops and windows, all under relentless rain. Sadly, not everyone could be saved. Three people died: a 4-year-old girl, a 7-year-old boy, and a man in his 40s or 50s. Each was swept away at different locations throughout the town. Their bodies were recovered hours later, downstream, buried in mud and debris. The tragedy hit a community that had already endured so much. After the wildfires of the previous summer, many had just begun rebuilding. And now, what the fire hadn't destroyed, the flood had wiped out without mercy. The consequences were massive. Destroyed bridges, collapsed streets, fallen power lines, ruptured water and gas pipes, and entire neighborhoods cut off. The town was partially paralyzed. Some areas still have no access to basic services. Hospitals operated at maximum capacity. Several injured people were rushed to emergency centers, while temporary shelters filled up quickly. The Ruidoso Community Center, Eastern New Mexico University, and Angus Church became sanctuaries for dozens of displaced families. Even the Ruidoso Downs racetrack, one of the town's most iconic landmarks, didn't escape the flood. Water rose to nearly 4 feet inside the stables, and the horses stood knee-deep in mud. Staff members managed to evacuate the animals, but the damage was extensive. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham declared a state of emergency that same day, releasing $750,000 in immediate relief funds and requesting federal assistance. She stated that Ruidoso was still recovering from last year's disaster and that this new blow required a coordinated response at both the state and federal levels. The monsoon season had only just begun weeks earlier. These powerful rains, common in the American Southwest between June and September, became especially destructive this time due to the scorched and weakened terrain. It was a deadly combination that turned Ruidoso into ground zero for a natural catastrophe. Climate experts agree that this flood is a stark example of how climate change is intensifying extreme weather events. Heavier rainfall, more frequent storms, and increasingly vulnerable landscapes are creating the perfect recipe for disasters like this. In the midst of it all, the people of Ruidoso displayed remarkable solidarity. Neighbors helped neighbors, volunteers distributed food and water, and rescue teams worked tirelessly. Despite the heartbreak, a powerful sense of unity gave hope to those who had lost everything. Social media filled with messages of support, but also with heartbreaking stories. Mothers searching for their children, seniors trapped inside flooded homes, and people who saw their entire lives washed away in mere minutes. The emotional scars will not heal quickly. Authorities are now focused on cleanup and damage assessment. Some streets remain caked in thick mud, and many vehicles are still submerged. Search crews continue to comb through isolated areas, hoping to find anyone who might still be missing. The economic losses are immense. Estimates suggest damages will run into the millions. Businesses were destroyed, crops wiped out, and the local infrastructure will likely take months or even years to fully restore. Disaster prevention experts stress that the town's infrastructure must be reimagined. Stronger drainage systems, reinforced riverbanks, and widespread reforestation will be essential. Without these measures, another similar event could be even deadlier. There's also a growing call to revisit building policies. Many homes were built in vulnerable areas, near rivers or on unstable hillsides. Urban planning must adapt to the new climate reality if we hope to avoid repeating this tragedy. One phrase kept coming up among rescuers: "This could have been worse." And it's true. Had the alert not gone out in time, the death toll could have been far higher. But for the families affected, the trauma is already a permanent wound. Schools have suspended classes, and many families are still looking for places to stay. Authorities have requested donations of clothes, food, and hygiene items. Every bit helps at a time when hundreds have lost everything. In shelters, some children are drawing what they saw: floating houses, sunken cars, and water everywhere. Their drawings may be the most painful testimony of all. No one should have to live through that. And yet, they did. And they remember. Local government officials are urging residents to stay alert. The ground is still saturated, and any additional rainfall could trigger further landslides or new flooding. People must remain cautious and follow all official instructions. Meanwhile, many wonder whether Ruidoso will ever return to what it once was. Some consider leaving, while others vow to stay and rebuild. What's certain is that this event has forever changed the soul of the town. What happened in Ruidoso is a warning to communities everywhere. Climate change is no longer a theory, it's a brutal reality. And if we don't prepare, what happened here could happen anywhere.